You squint into the golden haze of Alexandria, the desert heat curling off polished marble like incense smoke as sandals crunch beneath your feet. The great city buzzes not with camels or chariots, but with murmurs, footsteps, clinks of coins. You're not alone, of course. Pilgrims bustle past robes, brushing your arms eyes wide with devotion or curiosity. You're here for the divine, they say. But honestly, this feels suspiciously like a gift shop. Towering ahead is a temple, so ornate, so utterly draped in gold and incense, it looks less like a house of worship and more like the ancient world's version of Las Vegas. Gleaming statues beckon. Flaming braziers flicker. You half expect a priest to hand you a flyer and ask if you'd like to upgrade to our premium blessing tier. You edge toward the grand steps. A crowd clusters around a marble basin, murmuring excitedly. Someone places a coin in a strange bronze slot, and out flows a measured trickle of holy water. No priest, no chant, just clink hiss splash. You pause. Did you just witness the world's first vending machine? This temple, like many in Roman Egypt, is a hive of sacred spectacle. The gods are honored, sure, but offerings are encouraged, and let's just say the priesthood isn't hurting for silver. Statues cry, doors open on their own flames, flicker at the wave of a hand. It's all very moving and just a little too coordinated. Historians still debate whether the devout actually believed in these divine miracles, or simply went along with the show. A kind of holy placebo effect, if you will. But there's no debating that something clever is going on behind the curtains. You weave past columns painted with sacred symbols, trying not to trip on an amphora. And you wonder, not for the first time, whether the gods ever imagined their temples would look like this part sanctuary, part stage, part slot machine. It's divine theater, and business is booming. A priest strolls by in spotless white linen, his expression both serene and shrewd. You nod politely. He smiles. Somewhere faintly you hear a clank, another coin, another splash, another worshiper appeased for just a few drachma. And somewhere in the shadowy back room of this marble miracle factory, a mind is at work, tinkering, designing, dreaming up ways to bring awe to the masses, one automated blessing at a time. You don't know his name yet, but soon you will, because behind this blend of devotion and showmanship is a man who refuses to accept the world as it is, who sees levers where others see prayers, pipes where others see prophecy. A man who will leave behind no temples of his own, but whose ideas will echo through centuries. For now, though, you just watch the holy water flow, feeling the breeze of the incense fan, wondering if the gods might also take credit cards someday. You find him not in the temple, but in a dusty workshop that smells faintly of warm metal olive oil and a hint of singed scroll. No fanfare, no altar boys. Just one man hunched over a marble table, scribbling furiously, with a reed pen as gears, springs, and spools clutter every corner. His name is Hero of Alexandria. And no, it's not a nickname. His parents really named him that. Confidence starts young in this era. Hero isn't a soldier or a poet or a politician. He's something rarer, a mechanic of mysteries. The sort of person who looks at a temple and thinks, what if the door opened itself? But only after a sacrifice, a man who sees the divine not as unknowable, but as programmable. As you stand behind him, peeking past a tangled mass of bronze tubing, you catch glimpses of his mind at work. He sketches a pipe, bent just so weighted by a stone that pulls on a string that lifts a lever. A flame heats, a chamber pressure builds, and poof, the statue of Apollo nods his head. Not bad for a Tuesday. Hero lives in the 1st century CE at a time when Alexandria is a glittering hub of Greek science, Roman bureaucracy, and Egyptian tradition, a cross-cultural stew with a pinch of superstition and a generous dollop of ambition. And Hero, he's the garnish that makes the whole thing sparkle. He's an engineer, yes, but also a magician, a playwright, a bit of a prankster. His treatises, like the famous Pneumatica, aren't just dry manuals. They're stage directions for the divine. How to make a temple door open automatically. How to make a mechanical puppet pour wine. How to terrify your enemies with a fake thunder machine. All real titles. All real inventions. He's basically Da Vinci, but with fewer flying machines and more automated snacks. There's something childlike in his design, something delighted. He doesn't need to make a singing bird that chirps when someone enters a room, but he does because why not? Life's short. Might as well fill it with wonders. Historians still argue whether Hero truly invented these machines or simply documented older Greek and Egyptian tech. Some suggest he compiled others' ideas into more efficient designs. Others claim he was simply better at self-promotion. And honestly, can you blame him? If you made a machine that shot wine into a goblet with perfect timing, you'd want a little credit too. You crouch beside a contraption that looks like a chubby bronze bird bath. Hero nudges it with a stylus, and a tiny lid lifts, revealing a delicate internal mechanism. Springs, weights, a tiny valve. You have no idea what it does, but you're oddly emotional. It's not just the craftsmanship, it's the intention behind it. The idea that someone in a toga sat here 2,000 years ago thinking, what if this bowl could greet people? This is Hero's world, where even objects have secret lives if you know how to pull the right string. And he's not done, not even close, because the real miracle, the one that will echo down temple halls and vending machines for millennia, is still taking shape. A way to dispense blessings without a priest, to bring sacred water to the masses with nothing but a coin, a clank, and a careful calculation of weight and flow. You don't know what's more astonishing, that he built it or that it actually worked. But you'll see soon enough. For now, Hero just keeps sketching. The lamp flickers, the gears wait, and the world prepares for its first sip of sacred automation. You're woken figuratively because, let's be honest, the soft hiss of incense and the whispery shuffle of papyrus have already lulled you halfway to sleep by the sudden creak of something metallic. Hero grins. He's testing one of his favorites, a temple door. Not just any door. This one opens on its own. The moment a flame is lit on the altar nearby. There's no priest yanking it open from the other side, no wind gust nudging it ajar. You watch blinking slowly as the torch is placed on the pedestal. A few moments pass. The air shifts. Somewhere inside the altar, pressure builds. Pipes groan. Then ka-chunk. The heavy bronze doors swing open with a stately creak, like they've decided the gods approve of you after all. You glance sideways. Is anyone else seeing this? The other visitors in the temple seem suitably impressed. Wide eyes, mouths slightly open. One man drops to his knees. Another drops a coin in the donation bowl. And Hero. He's watching them with quiet amusement, as though he's written the punchline to a joke that everyone else is still catching up to. Steam, he murmurs, barely audible above the clatter. It's just steam. You lean closer. He explains gently, like a magician revealing the trick to a very sleepy audience, that beneath the altar is a sealed vessel. The fire heats the water inside. Steam expands. The pressure forces air through a pipe, which moves a weight, which turns a wheel, which lifts a latch. You stop listening, around expands. The point is, it's clever, and it works. Hero didn't stop at steam-powered doors. Oh, no. He built thunder machines. Literal thunder in a box, A hidden mechanism you could crank and it would rumble and boom like Zeus had a tummy ache. Temples could simulate divine storms on command. Scared worshippers were generous worshippers after all. There's a device to make statues speak well hiss, technically. A system of bellows that breathes air through a copper tube. Another uses water pressure to raise a flame from a bowl right on cue. All timed, all orchestrated. Faith. With a soundtrack. It's hard not to feel impressed. Or slightly nervous. Heroes' temples are rigged tighter than a stage play. Every miracle is rehearsed, every movement controlled. You're not just entering a sacred space, you're attending a performance. And you can almost hear him backstage muttering, "Cue the lightning." Historians still argue whether temple-goers believed. These spectacles were genuine miracles or simply appreciated the experience. Was it worship or interactive theater? Did priests wink knowingly at each other as the doors swung open? Did they ever panic when the steam valve stuck? No one can say for sure. But one thing is clear, these machines weren't just for show. They were a kind of religious interface, a way for ordinary people to interact with the divine. Insert offering, receive blessing. Light flame, hear thunder. The gods became programmable. And Hero, he was their chief technician. You walk through another doorway, this one operated by a system of sand and pulleys. It closes behind you with a soft thud. Another miracle. Another machine. You glance up at a statue of Serapis, looming and serene, his eyes oddly lifelike. Hero leans beside you and mutters, "That one winks on Tuesdays." You snort, surprising even yourself. It echoes. A priest frowns. But the moment lingers, this strange blend of reverence and ridiculousness. Holy spaces turned into high-tech funhouses. Worship built on hydraulics. Awe born from aerodynamics. And somewhere deep in the shadow of the temple, another invention is ticking quietly. It accepts coins, it holds sacred water, and it's about to change everything. You trail Hero down a narrow corridor, the air cool and dry, the stone walls etched with faded prayers. His sandals scuff against the flagstones as he pauses before what looks like an unusually sturdy pedestal. It's round bronze and unassuming at first glance, maybe an incense burner or a lustral bowl for ritual washing. But Hero taps it gently like a magician tapping the top hat before pulling out a rabbit. "Behold," he whispers almost conspiratorially, "the holy water vending machine." And just like that, you're wide awake. The device has no buttons, no screens, no flashing lights. Instead, there's a small slot near the top, just wide enough for a coin. Below it, a little hinged flap. That's it. But Hero's eyes twinkle. You know, something peculiar is about to happen. He flicks a small bronze coin between his fingers and drops it into the slot. There's a soft thunk as it disappears into the machine. You hear an inner lever shift, a brief pause. Then, with a satisfying glurp, a stream of holy water trickles out into a shallow dish beneath the flap. You blink. Did you just witness divine plumbing? Here's how it works. Hero explains while you stare entranced. The coin lands on a tiny platform inside. Its weight tips the scale, opening a valve briefly and releasing a precise amount of liquid. Once the coin slides off the platform, the valve closes again. Simple, elegant, completely mechanical. No prayers required, though a little awe doesn't hurt. You crouch to look closer. No tricks, no hidden hands. Just bronze gravity and an understanding of pressure that would make a modern engineer do a double take. Hero chuckles. Now imagine the possibilities, he says. A sacred function automated. The gods don't have to supervise every drop. You smirk. And the priests? He raises an eyebrow. Well, they're still collecting the coins. The implications are wild. In an age where religious rituals are deeply communal and strictly controlled, this device offers something radical: self-service spirituality. Just drop a coin and cleanse your hands. No lines, no rituals, no awkward small talk with the local priest. It's the future 2,000 years early. Historians still argue whether Hero's holy water vending machine was ever widely deployed. Some believe it was more of a prototype, a curiosity, a proof of concept. Others think it might have stood quietly in temple vestibules, dispensing sacred water to those who couldn't afford an offering but still wanted a blessing. A kind of spiritual democratization, one drop at a time. And yet, this machine is more than a gadget. It's a philosophy. Hero didn't just want to impress people. He wanted to empower them. With a coin and a simple mechanism, anyone could access something once mediated only by a priest. It's hard not to draw a straight line from this contraption to the ATMs and self-checkouts of today. You run a finger across the smooth bronze. It's warm to the touch, as if it remembers every offering, every hand cupped beneath its spout. There's something beautiful about it, honestly. Not just the engineering, though, that's undeniably clever, but the intention. A machine that doesn't just serve water, it serves trust. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, humans and gods don't always need an intermediary. You straighten up. Hero's already moved on, fiddling with a box that chirps like a bird when tapped. But behind you, the vending machine glints softly in the lamplight, sacred and silent, waiting for the next coin. Maybe tomorrow it'll wink at someone. You follow the soft clang of tools into Hero's cluttered backroom, where every surface is a museum of possibilities. Bronze gears lie like oversized beetle shells beside sketches of spirals and weights. It's like stepping into a dream, if that dream was narrated by a very sleepy professor with a love for hydraulics. Hero lifts the lid on the vending machine's innards and gestures for you to come closer. Most people only see the water, he murmurs. They don't see this. You lean in. It's not magic, it's mechanical poetry. The machine's secret lies in leverage, balance, and flow. When the coin drops, it falls onto a delicately balanced pan, just heavy enough to tilt. That tilt pulls on a wire or rod which opens a valve made of simple bronze. The holy water, stored in a chamber above, is released for a brief moment. Enough for a handful, no more. Then, as the coin slides off the pan, the valve closes. Reset. Ready for the next believer. Hero smiles at your expression. The real miracle is precision, he says. And he's right. There's no room for error. If the valve sticks, too much water spills. If the pan's angle is off, the coin doesn't trigger the mechanism. Every part must work in harmony. Metal weight, angle flow. There's no script, no override button, only balance. You trace a pipe with your fingertip, imagining the moment centuries ago when Hero tested this for the first time. Did he feel pride? Or was he already tweaking it for version 2.0? Historians still argue whether the machine dispensed only water, or whether some versions offered oil, wine, even perfume. One tantalizing account from a later scribe mentions machines of offering that released scented mist. Was that Hero's work too? Or a clever imitator? No one knows, but the basic design endures. It's the same logic behind modern vending machines, flush toilets, and certain fairground rides. Fluid dynamics meets user interaction. Except here it's dressed up as devotion. You wonder about the materials. Hero worked mostly in bronze, wood, and stone. No plastic, no silicone. Just raw elements forged and filed into obedience. Each joint must be smooth, each pipe tightly sealed. And then there's the water, sacred yes, but also heavy, prone to leaks, eager to misbehave. One misaligned lever, and you don't have a miracle. You have a puddle, and yet Hero succeeded. Somehow, with no CAD software or laser cutters, he built a machine that used simple physics to simulate divine will. And people bought it literally and figuratively. You shift your weight and hear a faint click, a hidden hinge. Hero raises an eyebrow. Don't lean too far, he says. That one triggers the thunder machine. You freeze. He's joking, probably. Somewhere behind you, a faint hiss. You decide not to investigate. Instead, you focus on the poetry of the device again. A simple transaction, wrapped in bronze charged with belief. The sound of the coin, the brief rush of water. The little moment where you felt the gods had noticed you. And all of it engineered. It's hard not to feel something like reverence. Not for the gods, for the man who dared to build them a vending machine. The temple glows amber with late afternoon light as you wander past columns painted with curling vines and birds that seem to watch you. Hero strolls beside you, arms folded his sandals, quiet on the cool stone. He doesn't say much, he rarely does when he's thinking. You can almost hear the gears turning in his mind. You pause near a collection of donation bowls, each embossed with the symbol of a different deity. Coins clink gently as a few worshippers pass through, each tossing in an offering with a mix of piety and habit. The sound is soft, rhythmic, almost like rainfall in a copper forest. Hero stops beside you. You ever wonder, he says lightly, where all the coins go? You arch an eyebrow. He knows you've been wondering. Because here's the quiet part of the miracle temples weren't just houses of worship. They were businesses. Not in a sinister way necessarily, but in a way that would be deeply familiar to anyone who's ever walked into a modern megachurch gift shop. The vending machine. Oh, it's sacred, yes, but it's also efficient. No priest needed. No time wasted. Just a clean, crisp transaction. And behind every automation is the unspoken truth: someone is profiting. Hero explains how temples were funded, not just by taxes and wealthy patrons, but by the constant trickle of small donations. Every coin mattered. The poor could afford a single obol. The rich gave more, of course, but the real income came from scale. Thousands of pilgrims. Thousands of coins. The vending machine wasn't just a marvel, it was a money stream. Historians still debate how involved the priesthood was in the engineering of these machines. Did they commission Hero directly, or did he offer these inventions in exchange for protection and patronage? Some suspect a few temples even tried to reverse engineer his devices clumsily. One poorly preserved machine from the southern delta was reportedly so leaky it baptized people's ankles. But what no one disputes is this: the temple economy thrived on automation, and automation required trust. That's where Hero excelled. His machines worked. They didn't jam, they didn't overpour. The water always flowed just enough to count as sacred, not so much to waste. You imagine the psychology of it. A visitor, poor and tired, drops in a coin. They get holy water. No lines, no judgment. Just ritual simplified. There's something deeply human about that, and deeply modern. Hero waves you forward toward a quieter courtyard. A fountain burbles lazily in the center, and two acolytes sweep petals into neat piles. Nearby, a young boy clutches a coin and eyes a machine just like the one you saw earlier. He hesitates. Then shyly he drops in the coin. The water flows, and his face lights up with quiet wonder. You watch from the shade. That moment, small, ordinary, and sacred, is everything Hero designed for. A bridge between the person and the divine, built from bronze imagination and a little economic pragmatism. You turn to Hero. He doesn't speak, but there's a flicker of pride in his eyes. Not for the profit, but for the precision. Because when faith meets function, something astonishing happens. A warm breeze rustles the fronds of a date palm, As you sit with Hero on the temple steps, watching a young couple marvel at a statue that seems to breathe, chest subtly rising, falling as if the god within were asleep but listening. The woman presses her hand to her mouth in awe. The man mutters a prayer and tosses a coin. You glance at Hero, his lips twitch in amusement. Air bellows hidden in the base, he says. Counterweights, a clever cheat. You nod slowly. It's magnificent, yes, but it is a cheat, isn't it? That quiet discomfort hums under the surface like a low-tuned lyre string. The machines are impressive, but are they honest? You ask the question aloud. Hero sighs. Is it worship, he muses, if the miracle is on a timer? A fair point. You watch a group of children giggle as a small bronze owl twitches its head on a perch nearby eyes, blinking with soft copper clicks. One girl shrieks and hides behind her older brother. Everyone claps. It's delightful, but you can't shake the feeling that this is all a bit too perfect. Historians still argue whether Hero's inventions enhance spiritual connection or undermined it. Some believe they made worship more accessible, more engaging. Others claim they cheapened the experience, turning awe into amusement. One ancient critic even complained that the gods speak too often these days and always on cue. The line between mystery and mechanics gets blurry fast. You think back to the door that opened itself, the thunder that rumbled at just the right moment, the statue that seemed to watch you. Were those divine signs or stage effects? And if the worshiper believes, does it even matter? Hero offers no answers. He only shrugs, then mutters, even the oracle at Delphi rehearsed. You chuckle despite yourself. There's something strangely comforting in that the ancient world, for all its marble and mythology, had a touch of theater. That faith could coexist with hydraulics, that you could believe and still appreciate a good pulley system. And maybe that's the point. Maybe Hero's machines weren't meant to replace the gods, but to translate them into something tactile, something close, something you could touch and see and hear. You look up at the statue again. The eyes don't follow you, not really. But in the golden light, it's hard not to feel watched. The owl blinks again. The children scream with delight. And the temple exhales quietly, like it's satisfied with its own illusion. You wander deeper into Hero's workshop, past the holy water machines and thunder contraptions, and into a stranger corner of his mind. Here, the inventions are less reverent, more playful, unnecessary, delightful, utterly odd. On one shelf sits a bronze bird, its mouth open in perpetual song. Hero gives it a gentle tap. Tweet, tweet. The sound is surprisingly pleasant, clear, if a little wheezy. Steam-powered, he says with a wink. Don't ask how long it took to get the pitch right. Next to it, a small box with a spinning disc inside. He calls it a fortune wheel. You drop a coin in it, rattles through a maze of channels, and a little arm jerks forward to flick the disc. It spins, clicks, and stops on a symbol, perhaps a lion or a snake or a crab. Each one, Hero explains, has its own meaning. Crab, he smirks, usually means taxes are coming. It's not just birds and wheels either. You see an elaborate wine-pouring automaton shaped like a tiny servant. It holds a shallow cup perfectly balanced. Add wine to the reservoir in its back, and as the liquid level rises, the figure tilts forward, pouring exactly 1 cup's worth, then resetting. Why, you ask, grinning. Why not, Hero replies. Guests love it, especially after the 3rd round. Historians still debate how many of these lesser-known devices were ever built versus imagined. Hero's treatises include pages of blueprints for devices so eccentric they might have been written half in jest. One describes a hydraulic organ that plays when the sun shines, essentially a musical sundial. Another references a temple machine of sorrow that weeps real tears on feast days. No surviving models exist, but oh, to hear that machine cry. There's a thread running through all of it. It's one part science, one part showmanship. Hero doesn't just build what's needed, he builds what's possible. Machines that sing, that spin, that surprise. They aren't divine, they aren't solemn, they're joyful. And Joy Hero seems to believe is its own kind of holiness. You watch him adjust a pipe on the owl. It lets out another chirp, a little louder this time. He nods, satisfied. Even machines deserve to be heard, he mutters. You wonder if people 2,000 years from now will say the same about their inventions. You wonder if they'll trace their roots back here to a man with a coin, a gear, and too much imagination to keep quiet. You trail your fingers along a schematic etched into a wax tablet. It shows something with wings, too delicate to fly, too beautiful not to dream about. Is that yours, you ask? Hero shrugs. Mine, someone else's doesn't matter. What matters is building it anyway. The bird sings again. And outside in the dusty light, another temple bell rings, calling believers not just to prayer, but perhaps to wonder. You awaken from a brief daze. Was it the heat? The hypnotic chime of that bird thing, and find yourself not in Alexandria anymore, but walking dusty corridors lined with sandstone carvings. The light has changed. The air smells older, richer, spiced with centuries. Hero walks beside you, ghost-like but certain, as you pass faded glyphs of ibis-headed gods and wide-eyed crocodiles. This isn't his time, but it is his inspiration. Because long before Hero sketched a holy water vending machine, others were carving blueprints into stone. Ancient Egypt, especially its temples, was no stranger to the idea of mechanical spectacle. Here in these shadows, you find a door that opens with the water pressure. There a statue that weeps oil on command. A priest flicks a switch behind a curtain, and a flame ignites from the palm of Horus. The crowd gasps. Coins clink. Sound familiar. Historians still argue whether Hero borrowed directly from these Egyptian devices or if he arrived at similar solutions independently. It's a fair debate. Many of the temples in Roman-era Alexandria were built atop or beside older shrines, and Hero surely would have had access to their archives. Papyrus scrolls, local legends, whispered techniques passed between engineers the way recipes are shared between neighbors. Even earlier in Mesopotamia, records describe temples using primitive siphons and weight systems to control fountains and irrigation. Babylonian priests were in many ways the first hydraulic consultants. Their gods liked water too. So when Hero creates machines that breathe, pour, and perform, he's not inventing from scratch. He's standing on the shoulders of sandstone giants. But it's what he does with that knowledge that's remarkable. He doesn't just preserve it, he expands it, streamlines it, writes it all down clearly with diagrams. His treatises read like IKEA manuals for minor miracles. Insert liver A into groove, B add sacred flame, avoid flooding the congregation. In doing so, he becomes something more than an inventor. He becomes a bridge. You pause in front of a large stone basin, carved with images of Anubis, blessing water with a crook and flail. A pipe runs from its base into the floor, clearly ancient plumbing. Possibly used to draw water upward by air pressure or even animal-powered bellows. It's beautiful. Cracked but still functional in theory. Hero kneels beside it and smiles, brushing sand from the lip. Elegant, he says. They understood flow. You nod, mesmerized by the simplicity of it all. The way these ancient minds turned water and air into tools long before electricity made anything easy. The mechanics weren't just practical, they were sacred. The movement of liquid was the movement of the gods. You trace a symbol, an eye etched near the spout, watching, always watching. And suddenly you understand why Hero built machines that perform. He wasn't showing off. He was participating in a lineage of thinkers who believed that to control the elements wasn't to replace the divine, but to collaborate with it. To choreograph a dance of water and fire, steam, and balance for audiences who needed both spectacle and serenity. And maybe in the whir of gears and the hush of flowing water, they heard something sacred. You certainly do. The workshop feels colder now, not because of the temperature, but because you've wandered into a deeper chamber where Hero stores the relics he doesn't display. Proto-machines, abandoned projects, drafts carved into thin slabs of wood, ideas etched and crossed out with impatient hands. This is where genius goes to get frustrated. Hero stands before a broken bronze eagle, its wings stuck halfway open. He sighs, then grins at you like a man who's fought every bolt in the known world and lost more than once. I once made a machine, he says, that poured water if you said the right word. It only understood one accent. Nobody liked it. You chuckle, picturing a temple visitor whispering fervently into a confused owl statue that refuses to function unless it hears perfect Attic Greek. It brings you to a thought how much of Hero's brilliance is his and how much is borrowed. That's the debate scholars love to sink their teeth into. Was Hero an original mind or merely a very clever compiler, a greatest hits DJ of ancient mechanics? He certainly cites older works sometimes clearly, sometimes with a casual, as those before me have shown, tone. Many of his designs echo earlier Egyptian and Babylonian practices. There are undeniable similarities between his wine-pourer automaton and earlier Greek descriptions of Dionysian rituals that used trick vessels, and yet Hero documents things no one else thought to write down in such detail. He improves them, streamlines them. He adds pulleys where others had ropes. He creates options, builds, variations, tweaks the weight-to-valve ratios so that offerings pour more smoothly, more precisely. Historians still argue whether that's invention or refinement. One camp calls him a genius innovator. The other says he was just an editor with access to better copper tools. But as you peer into a cracked scroll bearing the faint sketch of a bird that flaps when heated by sunlight, you wonder if the distinction even matters. Hero didn't just preserve knowledge, he activated it. He turned potentials into practice. He made ideas move, and in doing so, he ensured that they'd survive. Because in a world without patents or engineering schools, ideas had to be exciting to live on. They had to be remembered. And nothing sticks like a machine that hisses chirps or mysteriously blesses you with lavender-scented water. You step over a pile of gears. One wobbles gently as if it's still spinning in its own little dream. Hero catches your eye and shrugs. Sometimes I build things just to see if I can. There's no smugness in it, just curiosity. The kind that burns longer than any oil lamp. You can almost hear the unspoken truth between you that every engineer, ancient or modern, is building with echoes, reworking old songs with new harmonies. The wheel wasn't reinvented after all. It was refined. And Hero, he may not have sung the first note, but by the gods he made it catchy. You step out into the Alexandria sunlight, blinking as if you've been in a vault for a century. Hero squints beside you, cradling a copper hinge like it's a baby bird. He's been talking nonstop about pulley resistance for the last 5 minutes, but now his voice softens. They copied everything, he mutters. You follow his gaze to the harbor, where ships with square Roman sails float like heavy beetles across the glinting sea. Alexandria, once proudly Greek, is now Roman, too cloaked in bureaucracy and marble. The machines, they didn't stay secret for long. The Romans loved gadgets, maybe too much. They got their hands on Hero's texts, or at least copies of them. Scribbled notes in Latin started showing up across the empire. Temple engineers in Ostia and Pompeii tried to replicate his steam doors. They even built a few vending machines, but the results were mixed. You pass a Roman amphora stamped with a crude diagram of what might be Hero's thunder machine, or just a very confused attempt at plumbing. One record from a military outpost describes a coin-operated wine device which sprayed aggressively upon activation. Not quite divine. Historians still argue how much of Hero's legacy the Romans truly understood. Did they grasp the mechanics or just the spectacle? Some surviving Roman machines functioned beautifully. Others exploded. There's an account of a noble's villa in Gaul catching fire after a flame-powered chorus bird malfunction during a dinner party. Hero winces at that one. They always overheat the valves, he mutters, and they never wait for the pressure to equalize. You imagine Roman aristocrats flushed with wine shouting at bronze birds and cursing Greek inventors. Not exactly how Hero envisioned it. Still, something in the Roman spirit admired his work, if not the engineering, then the idea of it. The notion that gods could be summoned with gadgets, that water could bless, that statues could breathe. Rome loved grandeur after all. It adored illusions. But there was a shift. In Rome, these machines lost their sacred wrapping. They were removed from temples and installed in bathhouses, gardens, even theaters. No more incense or prayers, just applause and laughter. Hero didn't mind, you suspect. He might have been amused, delighted even, because beneath the temple, solemnity was always a hint of mischief. He liked being copied. He just hated being misunderstood. You sit on a stone wall overlooking the harbor. Seagulls shriek above. Below, Roman officials haggle loudly over grain. Hero adjusts a gear between his fingers. They'll lose the manuals, he says quietly. Eventually. They'll copy the shape, not the soul. You know, he's right. Within a few generations, many of his machines would vanish, broken, misused, forgotten. The schematics would be misread, redrawn, lost. By the Middle Ages, Hero would become a ghost, a name in the margin of a manuscript, a whisper, but not yet. For now, he watches the ships. And somewhere across the empire, another wine-pouring automaton is pouring a little too quickly. You wake to silence. The machines are gone. The workshop is dust. The harbor empties, save for the faint groan of wood from a shipwrecked frame, half buried in sand. You've crossed time again. No more chirping birds. No more whispering valves. Alexandria's fire has faded. The great library has been sacked. Scrolls, Hero's scrolls, burned or buried, traded for war plans and religious decrees. The world enters a long nap of invention. It's not that people stop building entirely, but they stop thinking like Hero. The curiosity dims. The gears fall still. Faith becomes solemn again, unmechanized. Temples cease to hiss and whir. They echo now, with sermons, with incense, with silence. Historians still argue what caused the slowdown. Was it the fall of Rome, the rise of rigid orthodoxy, the sheer loss of knowledge when libraries fell and scribes forgot the blueprints? Or was it just fear? Fear that miracles built by hand might offend the real gods. In the centuries that follow, there are echoes faint and scattered. A rotating crown in a Byzantine church, a mechanical lion in a Baghdad palace that growls once a week. A few scraps of Hero's writings survive copied, in Arabic, footnoted by scholars who squint at the diagrams and whisper, "Is this real?" But the golden age of mechanical faith, it sleeps. You drift through a medieval scriptorium where monks copy texts by candlelight. Their robes shuffle. One flips through a weathered scroll, finds a diagram of a self-pouring cup, and furrows his brow. He mutters something about heresy and tucks it beneath the table. No one builds it. 1,000 years pass. People remember the gods. They forget the machines. Hero too fades. The holy water machine is never mentioned in sermons. The thundermakers are mistaken for musical instruments. The doors that once opened with fire now rot on rusted hinges. And yet, there's a sense that something has been left behind. Not just scraps of bronze, but a seed, an itch. Somewhere in a cathedral, a curious bell ringer wonders what else a pulley might do. Somewhere in China, an inventor watches steam rise from his tea and dreams of movement. Hero would smile, because ideas like machines are never truly gone. They're just waiting for the right moment to start turning again. The candle flickers, the dust swirls, and a hand, ink-stained, impatient, alive, reaches for a forgotten scroll. We're in the heart of the Renaissance now. Italy, maybe Spain. The whispers of ancient genius, long silent, begin to murmur again through crumbling pages pulled from monastery shelves and merchant chests. Translations arrive from Arabic, Greek, a few cracked papyri from Alexandria. They bear a name, Hero of Alexandria. And suddenly, like a lever pressed, a new age begins to stir. You're standing behind a man in Florence, wild-eyed and ink-fingered, turning pages faster than his candle can keep up. He gasps. His breath catches. He made what? The old holy water machine. The steam doors, the puppet that serves wine. They're real. You see diagrams copied onto fresh parchment. Latin scribbled over Greek. Doodles in the margins. Notes like, test in workshop, get brass tube. The machines aren't just studied, they're rebuilt. Hero's words awaken something that had gone quiet for centuries. Wonder, yes, but also permission. The idea that invention can be both sacred and joyful. Historians still argue who rediscovered Hero. Was it Da Vinci? He certainly knew of the old texts and some of his sketches. Self-opening doors, mechanical lions seem suspiciously familiar. Or was it the Jesuit Athanasius Kircher who treated ancient machines like puzzles for God's amusement? One thing's certain, Renaissance minds devoured Hero's work. They didn't always credit him. They didn't always understand him. But they were inspired. Gears creaked again, steam hissed. Models were built and tested. And though many broke or clanked awkwardly in dim corners, the idea of Hero moved again like a machine slowly winding to life. You're in a Venetian workshop now. A young boy pumps a bellows under his tutor's instruction. A copper valve squeals open. A figure tips a flask of colored water. The boy's eyes widen. The tutor just nods. The old Greek knew this, he says. Now you do too. You trace your finger along a copied page. The holy water vending machine again. Still simple. Still perfect. And yet, there's more now. Renaissance minds tweak it. Add flourishes. Decorative knobs. A small relief of St. Peter. They Christianize the pagan devices, drape them in new robes. But the heart of the machine remains Hero's. Some inventors imagine building entire mechanical churches. Hymns played on gears, angels flapping on pulleys. It doesn't all work, but some of it does. You hear it in the ticking of early clocks. You see it in the fountains of Versailles, designed not just for water, but for wonder. Hero doesn't live again, but his machines do. And that may be the closest thing to immortality an inventor ever gets. You open your eyes to a familiar noise. A hum, a hiss, a clink. No temple, no bronze owl. Just a modern city street. A vending machine glows under fluorescent lights, its glass face lit like a shrine. Candy bars, fizzy drinks, bottled water. You insert a coin, well a card now, and out slides your blessing in plastic form. And you think, Hero would have loved this? Because here, 2,000 years later, his vision hasn't just survived, it's everywhere. Machines that serve, devices that respond, offerings for goods no priest required. What began as a sacred novelty in an Alexandrian temple is now a feature of every airport, every office, break room, every train station. The vending machine lives, and it's not alone. In a Tokyo temple, a robot priest recites blessings with a mechanical voice. In churches across Europe, candles light automatically when you tap your phone. In hospitals, machines dispense holy water touched up with antiseptic. The divine is still automated, just with better wiring. Hero's ghost would chuckle at the irony, or maybe beam with pride. Historians still argue whether modern engineers should see him as the first roboticist, the first systems designer, or just an unusually clever tinkerer. Some scholars claim the very concept of interactive technology begins with him. Others say we project too much onto the past. But you know better. You see his fingerprints in the gestures we don't even notice anymore. A door that opens as we approach, a soap dispenser that blesses our hands, a sensor that responds to movement light presence. All quiet machines doing sacred tasks, cleansing, serving, welcoming. You swipe through your phone. Apps respond. Algorithms whisper. Somewhere in a temple of code, Hero's spirit paces curious. The connection between faith and function never really broke. It just adapted. Instead of marble and flame, we use screens and sensors. But the impulse is the same, to touch something greater through something built. And yet, you can't help but feel a tug, a longing for that bronze basin in the flickering torchlight, for the hiss of steam, the glurp of sacred water, for the coin, the weight, the soft trickle into your hand. Because while modern machines are faster, sleeker, cleaner, they rarely surprise us. Hero's inventions were theatrical. They didn't just work, they performed. And in that performance was a kind of reverence, a suggestion that even machines might want to impress the gods. You sip from your plastic bottle. It's fine, it's clean, it's cold, but it isn't holy. Not like it used to be. You find yourself once more in Alexandria, but it's not real, not exactly. It's a softened, dream version, foggy at the edges like memory mixed with incense. Hero sits beside you in his old workshop, his robes a little neater than they probably ever were, the bird automaton, chirping in perfect rhythm. He doesn't speak at first. He just watches the gears turn. The gentle rise and fall of the bronze owl's chest. The click of the coin drop mechanism he rebuilt for the 1,000th time. Finally, he says, people always think machines make life colder. You glance at him, don't they? He shakes his head, slow and amused. Machines don't replace people. They reveal what we care about most, what we want to make easier, what we ritualize. You think back to the holy water basin, the careful calculations behind its valve, the delight in its precision, the way the devout still felt awe even when a priest wasn't there. Faith offered on a bronze lever. You realize now Hero wasn't just designing devices, he was sculpting moments. Moments of pause, of wonder, of attention. Historians still debate whether he was religious at all. Some say he was a pure rationalist, dazzled by numbers. Others insist no one builds a thunder machine without believing a little in gods. But standing in his dream workshop, you get the sense that belief wasn't the point. And participation was. Hero gave people a way to be involved, to step into the sacred with a gesture, to feel the world respond. He puts down the gear in his hand. Every ritual needs rhythm, he murmurs, even one made of cogs. You wonder what echoes of him remain in you, in the way you press an elevator button and expect it to obey, in the way you tap to pay doors, slide open, lights adjust. We still choreograph our lives with invisible servants and take them for granted. But behind every quiet mechanism, there's someone who once asked, what if this moved? What if worship could be activated? And what if awe could be engineered? You walk one last time through his temple of machines, now quiet, golden, thick with dust and legacy. A door opens softly as you pass like it remembers. Somewhere deep inside the bronze belly of the holy water vending machine, a tiny valve still waits. The world has turned 1,000 times since it last moved, but it's patient. It's built to serve. It's still listening. And now, as the final candle flickers in Hero's workshop, you let the quiet settle around you like a cloak. The clinks of coins, the sigh of steam, the soft chirp of mechanical birds, they fade one by one into the hush of sleep. You picture the basin again, nestled in temple shadow, waiting for a hand, for a coin, for a moment of belief. You see the pipes under the altar, the doors that open like breath. Machines once powered by sacred fire, now only remembered in dreams and forgotten pages. But even silence carries echoes. The holy water machine may be still, but the idea behind it hums beneath everything around you. In the hum of elevators, in the whisper of motion sensor lights, in the rhythm of taps and slides and blinking cursors. A world still quietly performing for us. And maybe, just maybe, that old spirit of invention still lingers, not in metal, but in intention. In the desire to touch something greater through the things we build. So rest now. Let the last gear wind down. Let the owl close its bronze eyes. Hero's machines have stopped turning. But your own thoughts. They can float gently now like coins in water. No more questions. Just the soft drip of time, and the hush of a world once filled with wonder.